Good morning. If I sound like I got gravelly throats, because I do. Been struggling with a head cold for about 2 or 3 days. So if I sound like I got a rock in my mouth, because I'm going to be popping these so I don't start coughing. So Scott was very kind to me earlier. He said, "Hey, I'll preach if you want to lead singing for me." Thank you very much, Scott. I didn't think that was something I wanted to do. And then always leave it to Tim Green to come up with something like that. So we're going to be in the Old Testament this morning. Romans chapter 15 and verse 4 says that everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through us learning the endurance and encouragement of the Scriptures, we might have hope. And I'm a fan of studying what happened before, so we don't create the same scenarios in our lives. In our culture today, it is chaotic at best. Would you say that's true? There's a great deal of turmoil and distress, troubles and heartaches in our lives today. There's ongoing people die, people lose their jobs, people get sick. People, my family, Paul and Delissa, not been here in like 3 weeks, because once Paul got it, once Delissa got it, then the kids got it, and now they're trying to get over all of that. So they've been passing around amongst themselves like a ping pong ball. And it's stressful. It's tough to be involved in all of that stuff. And you look at it and say, and then you look at our nation, our society, and you don't know what to believe. You just don't know what to believe anymore. You don't know who's telling you the truth, who's not telling you the truth, who's got an agenda, who doesn't have an agenda. You don't have any idea. Things are going on all over this place, and people are being hurt. And it's very distressing to people. And I thought, I found a text in 2 Chronicles. We're not going to go there just yet, so don't put it up just yet, Tim, but we're going to go there in a minute. It's during the reign of King Asa. Now, I don't know if you know much about any of these kings, but in the early times, right after Solomon dies, it's a very traumatic, very deliberate, very chaotic time, very distressful time. And it's a time when you have kings that rule for a while, and then there's times when you have kings that only rule for a couple of years, and then they're gone. And there's always chaos going on. Rehoboam is Solomon's son. And Rehoboam comes on the scene, and his claim to fame, I guess you'd say, is Solomon, before he dies, has put a heavy hand on the nation of Israel. And he has taxed them overwhelmingly. And so the people come to Rehoboam and say, "You need to lay off of us a little bit. It's been too hard." So he goes to the elders and he says, "What should I do?" And they say, "You need to back off. You need to lighten up on them a little bit. You need to give them a little bit of break." Well, he doesn't like that answer. So he goes to his friends that he grew up with, and his friend says, "Man, you ought to tax them even more." And so that's what he does. He decides, what a plan. I'll make even more money than my dad made. And so they rebel, and there's chaos in the land. And Jeroboam takes over and is a kind of an anarchist, and he takes many of them with him. And so you have the beginning of the divided kingdom. On the one hand, you have those following Rehoboam and some of the Israelites, the nation of Judah and Benjamin. And then you have the other 10 tribes that go with Jeroboam. Jeroboam goes up north, and he creates 2 places of worship, because he figures, well, if I don't have a place to worship, they're going to want to go back to the temple, and then I'm going to lose them. So I'm to keep control of them. So he builds 2 golden calves. And he puts one at Dan and one at Bethel. And they worship golden calves. Does it sound chaotic to you? Does it sound distressful? Think about if you're an Israelite and you find this going on. And you hear talk today of us going into civil war. And it's chaotic in your mind. You can't even fathom how we could get to that place. Well, they couldn't fathom it either. And then the next guy comes along, and his name is Abijah. And this is Abijah is Asa's father. Okay? And Abijah comes on the scene, and Judah has become unfaithful. During the reign of Rehoboam, they become unfaithful. And so Egypt attacks them and decimates them to a point. And then what happens is they cry out to God, and God annihilates them, Egypt. And Abijah comes on the scene. He becomes king of Judah. And Jeroboam says, I know what I'll do now. Now there's this harmony. I'll attack Judah. And so Jeroboam, with the northern kingdom, attacks the southern kingdom. Now there's definite conflict in the land. Can you imagine what it's like? I mean, we live in a pretty laid-back state, I would say. In Victoria, it's pretty laid back, you know. But some places up north, it's chaotic. There's chaos going on in the streets in some places. You see it on the news, and there's a lot of upheaval against Judah, and he's going to come up against them, and God just decimates him. Just decimates him. Jeroboam dies. And then Abijah dies, and Asa becomes king. And we're going to look at 2 Chronicles chapter 15 is where I want us to be. And I've got a text that, we'll have to scroll. Go ahead and put it up there, Tim. We're going to scroll through. I want you to go to the next slide where it says 5 and 6. We'll come back to this one. Okay? Because I want you to see what it says here. We got it? Look at what it says in verse 5. In those days, it was not safe to travel about for all inhabitants of the land of great turmoil. One nation was crushed by another, and one city by another, because God was troubling them with every kinds of distress. Hold up a minute. If you remember back a few weeks ago, Cole preached out of James chapter 1. And he talked about consider. Remember that when he said consider? Think about it. Think about what's fixing to happen here. He says, consider this. Consider it pure joy when you fall into various trials and tribulations, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Remember that? Well, my thought always when I looked at James chapter 1 was, who's testing my faith? Satan don't care. Isn't Satan testing my faith? It's got to be God testing me. What does he say here to Asa? And we'll get back to the first verses in a minute. I'll show you what's happened here. What's he saying? He said it was not safe for people to walk the streets, because one country was being crushed by another country and one city by another city. It was chaos. And it says because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. God was involved. For what reason? What was God involved for? God has always wanted us to be faithful to Him. Always. He's always wanted us to come to Him. You may be sitting there this morning and you feel like garbage. You may feel like life couldn't be any worse in my life. I've just lost this person, or that person just died, or I feel like garbage, I don't feel that good, or whatever. Maybe it's a job situation, whatever. I'm looking around and I know of some situations going on, and I know that you're in a struggle. I know there are people in this room that are struggling right now with certain things in their life. Alan Ray just found out that his brother died. Jim just found out that his brother died just the other day. That's harsh. It's hard. But to know that God is always in the middle of what's going on in our life. To know that sometimes God's going to have to trouble us. Sometimes He's going to have to bring great distress in our life to get us to do what we need to do. And you know what we're going to do? Do the opposite anyway. That's what we'll do. We'll do the opposite anyway. I want you to look at the first verses, what he says here. It says, the Spirit of God came upon Azariah of Obed. Azariah is a prophet. And he comes to Asa. And I want you to listen to what God says to Asa. Listen to me. Isn't that not what we're doing this morning? Listening to what God has to say? I started this with Romans chapter 15. Everything written in the past was written for what? To teach us. So that through our learning about Scripture, learning about the endurance and encouragement of Scripture, we might have hope. I don't have to walk out of this room this morning without any hope. I don't have to. I don't care what's going on in your life. I don't care if your marriage is garbage. I don't care if you don't feel good. I don't care if you're awaiting some crisis down the road. I don't care. I know that God's in control, don't we? Do we not know that God's in control? God's going to take care of whatever it is, and sometimes God's hand's going to be in the middle of it, doing what I don't understand why He would do. I have stood before God and shook my fist at Him and said, "Why are you doing this to me? I don't deserve this." And then find out much later on that it works out for my good anyway. It's amazing. I want God in my life troubling and distressing me. I want it because I know that it's not for any bad part. He's always got it for good for me because He wants me to be healthy. He wants me to be what I need to be. Now look at what it says. He tells Asa, Azariah comes, he says, "Listen to me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin, all the land over which you're king." He's not talking to Israel here. He's talking to Judah, and he's talking to the southern kingdom. And he said, "The Lord is with you when you are with Him." You know what I have to remember when it gets so bad and it's so heart-wrenching that it doesn't seem like I can make it anymore? That God promised me, He said, "I'll be with you as long as you stay with me. Stay with me and I'll be with you." That's hard to do sometimes, isn't it? When I'm listening to the wrong people. You remember what Rehoboam did? He went to get counsel, and instead of listening to the elders, he listened to his friends. The elders told him the right way to go. His elders of the day, his friends didn't, and it caused him chaos in his life. It caused a split in the kingdom. God was in the middle of that, guys. That's what God said. He said, I've troubled them with all kinds of distress. God knew what He needed to do. He had a plan all along. He's got a plan in your life. But part of that plan is I got to stay connected to Him. He said, "I'll be with you as long as you stay connected to me. Don't walk away." What does the story of the prodigal son say? When the prodigal son has to go, what does he do? What does the father do? Stays put. He doesn't go after him. He's there waiting when he comes back, but he doesn't go after him. He says, "Listen to me, Asa, and he said, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you when you are with Him. If you seek Him, He will be found by you." Proverbs chapter 2 is a text I use all the time when I study with people. Because it says, if I seek after wisdom and understanding, if I seek after knowledge, that God will make sure I find it. If I look for God, He's going to make sure I find it. I didn't put this text down. I'm just going to read this text to you. This is when Paul is talking to the people at Athens in Acts chapter 17. And I just want to read this to you. Listen to this. "From one man He made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth." Now listen to this. "And He marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands." God did this so that they would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He was not far from any of them. God set everything in motion for a reason, for us to seek Him. That was His plan all along. So whatever you're He's got going on in your life right now, what you need to know so you will seek Him. He wants you to seek Him with all of His heart, all of your heart. When this southern nation goes into captivity in Babylon, you know what He's going to do? He's going to put them in Babylon in captivity for 70 years. He says, "You're not going to get out until you seek me with all of your heart." With all of your heart. I want to ask you this morning, are you looking for Him with all of your heart? Have you decided to stay connected to Him? He said, "I promise you, if you stay connected to me, I'll stay connected to you." Have you decided, I'm going to seek Him with everything I have? And then He said, if you seek Him, He will be found by you. But if you forsake Him, He will forsake you. This is harsh, guys. God is putting trouble and distress in our lives for one reason, and that's for us to be connected to Him. That's what He's looking for. And then He says, "For a long time Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach and without the law. But in their distress they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought Him, and He was found by them." Every time you see the nation of Israel, every single time, you see them cry out to God. You know what God does? Always shows up. Always. Every time. When they cry out to Him. He may be waiting for you to cry out to Him this morning. Cry out to him. Say, God, I don't know what to do here. I have tried everything I know and nothing's worked. I've tried to fix my marriage. I've tried to stay healthy. I have tried to fix the chaos in my life, and it's just turned more chaotic. Every time I think I'm one step ahead, I fall down and I'm 2 steps backwards. Every single time. I know what the right thing is to do, and I just can't seem to pull it off. I've got people in my life pulling me this way and pulling me that way, and the chaos is overwhelming. And if this text teaches you nothing, it says, but God knows this. He knows us. And all he wants is for you to stay faithful to him. To be everything that he wants you to be. To strive every day to look for him in all that, with everything you have and with every fiber of your being. God knows you're struggling. God knows you have heartache. Some of that stuff God's put in your life for a reason, so you'll do this stuff. He doesn't tell us these stories just on a whim. These stories are here for a reason. For us to learn and to grow, to become the people that his son died to make us. You know, I get to be connected to these guys, and these guys get to be connected to me. We get to be connected to each other because of what God has done in our lives. Now I want you to look at verse 7. Remember, he's talking to Asa. Is it Asa? He said in verse 6, he said, and God was troubling them with every kind of distress. But as for you, be strong. Do not give up, for your work will be rewarded. Listen to me, guys. Be strong. Don't give up. No matter what, don't give up. Stay faithful to God no matter what. Do not give up. Stay strong. How do I do that? How do I stay strong? I stay in God's Word. I stay around good people, and I stay connected through prayer in God's life. And it will get better. And maybe I'll be dead tomorrow. But you know what? It got better. And if I am still alive tomorrow, then it's going to be better. No matter what, it's going to be better. You understand what it feels like to stand in this pulpit after my son stood up here? I can't tell you how proud I am. You know, to know that one of my sons is standing in the back doing what he does. The only reason this happened is because my wife and I decided to follow God. Because I don't believe it would have happened any other way. To have one that's at home taking care of a sick family. I talked to him the other day, and he had 2 sick little boys. The little girl didn't get sick. The boys did. Maybe she's too ornery to get sick. I don't know. But you know what? He was home taking care of his children. Yeah, you know, and all of this, I believe, is because of what God's done in my life. That's what God's capable of doing in our lives. And you guys know my family. We have been through some chaos in our lives. There's been some upheaval in our lives. Stay faithful. Be strong. No matter what, it will get better. He says, be strong. Don't give up. Don't give up. Okay? And then I'm going to take you to an invitation, I think. I didn't write this one down either. We didn't put it down. But it's in verse 12. It's the same chapter, but it's in verse 12. And it says, they entered into a covenant. The whole nation. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord their God of their ancestors with all their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, were put to death, whether small or great, man or woman. If they took an oath to the Lord, they would, with loud acclamation. You know what Asa has to do? Asa has to depose he deposed his grandmother. You know what that means? He had to kill her because she would not do what she was supposed to do, because she raised up an idol to a false god, and Asa had her eliminated. I understand it's a different culture. I understand that. I'm not telling you go out and do anything to your grandmother, but the point is is that when you take a covenant oath before God, it's important. It's important to Him. Ask yourself today, guys, ask yourself, what am I going to do to make sure I lead my family, I'm going to be strong. I'm not going to give up. And I'm going to wait for God to reward what I'm doing. He will do that. Okay? Remember, these things were put here to teach us that God's going to be involved. Sometimes it's going to be chaotic, but He's still involved. He has a plan that I don't get privilege of understanding. I don't understand what that plan is, but sometimes bad stuff's going to happen, and God's going to be at the heart of it. I believe that because I believe that's what this teaches. Guys, let's stand and sing.